as we get more news.
Well, Martha, meanwhile, back here at home, the headlines keep getting worse, it seems, for Hillary Clinton. A new investigation by the Associated Press revealing that over half of the private meetings Mrs. Clinton had scheduled while she was Secretary of State, well, turns out that they were with major Clinton Foundation donors. The AP analyzed government records and found at least 85 of the 154 people who had met or had phone conversations scheduled with Mrs. Clinton had either given money personally or through an organization. And we're talking about multi-millions of dollars in donations. Those 85 contributed as much as $156 million combined. At least 40 of those people donated more than $100,000 each, and 20 out of those 40, half, gave at least $1 million. Jennifer Griffin is following the Clinton campaign as she fundraises in California, and she is live in this early morning hour in San Francisco just after 6 a.m. So, Jennifer, how is the Clinton campaign responding to these new revelations this morning?
Well, Eric, her campaign manager, Robbie Mook, was on the morning shows this morning. They're pushing back pretty hard. He's saying that the AP essentially cherry-picked its data, and he said that as a result, the story is extremely misleading. He said they left out that the 1,700 meetings she had with foreign leaders. He added that including Nobel Prize-winning humanitarian Muhammad Yunus of Bangladesh, whose Grameen Bank provided microloans to women and who was being threatened by the Bangladesh government at the time that she met with him, is also misleading. Here's the campaign's official statement from spokesman Brian Fallon. Quote, "This story relies on utterly flawed data. It cherry-picked a limited subset of Secretary Clinton's schedule to give a distorted portrayal of how often she crossed paths with individuals connected to charitable donations to the Clinton Foundation." Now, as you mentioned, Eric, we're out here in California where Clinton held 4 fundraisers yesterday. She'll be here in San Francisco at the home of Apple's Tim Cook, along with other Silicon Valley entrepreneurs. She raised over $6 million just yesterday at those 4 fundraisers in Los Angeles. Eric?
All right, Jennifer, we'll be delving deeper into this question and the new revelations throughout our 2 hours here in America's Newsroom. Thank you.
So her opponent, Donald Trump, of course, was quick to seize on this news, saying that it is more proof, he believes, that there was a pay-to-play environment with Hillary Clinton when she was Secretary of State.
So many people, for doing so far less, are right now suffering tremendous repercussions, tremendous, for doing a tiny fraction of what Hillary Clinton did. If our Secretary of State can be bought or bribed or sold, it is a disgrace. This is a threat to the foundation of democracy, a threat. This is what happens in third world countries.
So let's bring in Fox News digital politics editor Chris Stirewalt with his analysis of all of this. How does this shake out, Chris? Good morning to you.
Good morning to you. Now, the thing with Hillary Clinton is they never seem to learn. She and her husband never, ever seem to learn, which is whether it was real estate dealings in Arkansas, whether it was allegations of selling pardons when he left the White House, whatever it is, they never seem to learn that hanging out near the ragged edge of criminal or illegal activity is not the place you want to be. Now, there is no evidence at all that Hillary Clinton has done anything illegal. But that shouldn't be the threshold. That should not be the threshold that you are butting up against if you are a major party nominee for president, if you have to say, hey, look, we have not been charged with any crimes for anything that we did. That's not the threshold you want to be playing with as a presidential candidate.
So what's the impact? You know, when you look through the list, it's been a tough week for any candidate by this measure. You've got the Colin Powell story, him saying, look, I never, told her that we did anything similar in terms of our emails. You've got this AP story. You've got the FBI uncovering 15,000 more emails that she said didn't exist that they say now they have found. So what's the impact of all this election-wise?
Well, the impact is a lot of it is already sort of priced in to Hillary Clinton's poll numbers that people are aware. There are a lot of Americans who say they don't trust Hillary Clinton and are voting for her anyway. That tells you something about the horrid election cycle that we are in. So that's true. But the other thing that's true is Hillary Clinton will probably end this election cycle the way that she began it, under threat of criminal charges. That's not where you want to be. Republicans will be hoping that as they get into October, that there is this real threat. There have been reports, unconfirmed, but there have been reports into a federal investigation into these payola and pay-to-play allegations about the foundation and Hillary Clinton. So she started with a federal investigation into her use of a secret email server, and she is concluding it, or likely to conclude it now, under some threat that there could be criminal investigation into her foundation.
Yeah,
so
that
what,
ain't
Chris,
cool. What have we learned from that? I mean, if it's the same power structure in Washington, that's not going to go anywhere, right? I mean, why should she fear any of that?
I'm not prepared to say that the FBI or the Department of Justice is corrupt or is not able to prosecute. James Comey certainly gave her a good taste of the lash when he talked about what she had done with her server. I'm not prepared to say that the FBI is corrupt, and I'm not, but I will say this. The best thing she has going for her is that while she's doing it, Donald Trump is doing open heart surgery with a ball-peen hammer and a chisel on his immigration plan and taking some focus away from that. So that helps her a little.
All right. But for the record, I'm not saying the FBI is corrupt either,
No.
But it seems that once it goes up the chain of command, something seems to happen. So we'll see. Chris, thank you very much. Good to see you, sir.
Well, I'm not either, but it turns out there are more questions about the FBI's investigation into Mrs. Clinton's private email server. It's House Republicans who want answers. Coming up, we will talk to Congressman Ron DeSantis of the House Oversight Committee with more on those questions about the FBI and the investigation.
House Republicans are demanding more answers on the FBI's investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails. Chairman of the House Oversight Committee, Congressman Jason Chaffetz, wants to know exactly who, among other things, had access to Clinton's private email server, information that was even redacted from his own eyes on the Oversight Committee.
She's not the head of Fish and Wildlife. She is the head of the Secretary of State. She's dealing in classified information on an hourly basis. It's reasonable to think that her information is chock full of classified information. And it is. And it was. And that's why when she gave access to those attorneys, and by the way, the IT professionals that were also allowed to access that computer, we don't know who these people are. They shouldn't be holding that information back from Congress. Who are these people that had access to this information?
Joined now by Florida Congressman Ron DeSantis, who sits on the Oversight Committee. Congressman, good morning. Good to have you here this morning.
Good morning.
I think people hear all of this, and then they hear, there's 15,000 more emails that have been found. And I think there's a certain amount of, well, hasn't this already been investigated, and isn't this over? So tell us where your committee stands on that issue, and if so, what action you still plan to take and why?
Well, remember, all Director Comey said was that he didn't think that the case could be prosecuted because there was, quote, no intent to harm the United States. Now, we all disagree with that interpretation of the statute. It only requires gross negligence. But that was that one instance about how she handled classified information. During the course of his testimony, he acknowledged that there were multiple individuals who did not have a security clearance who were given access either to her server or to her emails, and her attorneys were ruffling through those emails. And the way it works in any other aspect, in the military, for example, where I served, if somebody is being prosecuted for mishandling classified information, they can bring in attorneys, civilian attorneys. Those attorneys must get security clearance before they're given access to classified information. It doesn't seem like the rules were followed in this instance, so we're trying to get a handle on how many non-cleared people had access to some of this was top secret information.
Yeah, and one part of this story that I keep going back to is the FBI questioning of Hillary Clinton. Now, what's your understanding of why she was not under oath? I mean, James Comey himself, when she was talking about how this was an inquiry, it was no big deal, she wasn't under investigation, and then he came forward and said, oh no, this is an investigation that we're doing here. We don't do anything but investigations. So when the FBI sat down with Hillary Clinton, why would that not be under oath? Do you know the answer to that question?
What they would say is that any statement to a law enforcement official that's false, knowingly false, is a crime under 18 U.S.C. 1001. You don't have to be put under it. So that's what the FBI would say. But I think that you're right in a sense of the way it was conducted is very curious because they kind of did it. There was not really a good record of it. And then a couple days later, Comey said they weren't going to bring a case. And so I think the reason is because a lot of this was pre-cooked. I think the Justice Department told Comey, unless you can prove she intended for that information to go to hostile actors, we're just not going to do the case, and that's why he explained it the way he did it.
Yeah, I mean, there are two forums that she testified. She testified in front of the FBI, and as you point out, it was a closed-door situation. They took notes. There's no official transcript. That, I think, just strikes a lot of people as strange. And you may have put your finger on the reason for that. It may be that they were already given the sign that, look, unless you've got an airtight case, you better not go any further with this whole thing. The other place she testified was Congress. Do you believe that she was truthful when she spoke to you all?
Absolutely not. She said that her attorneys reviewed every email. Comey said that was false. She said there was no classified markings. Comey said that was false. She said that all work-related emails were turned over. Comey said that was false, and obviously we know that's false because we're getting 14,000 plus additional emails. And the other area where she effectively testified, Martha, was when she signed a sworn affidavit in August of 2015 testifying under penalty of perjury that she turned over all of her work-related emails to the State Department. It doesn't appear that that affidavit is truthful either. All
right, well, we'll see what happens in your committee next, and what the way forward is on this, and if there is a way forward, and if she's elected president, you have to ask what kind of standards would be put in place for classified material at that stage of the game if she moves back into the White House come next January. So thank you very much, Congressman. Good to talk to you. We'll follow your work with great interest.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
There certainly can be a softening because we're not looking to hurt people. We want people. We have some great people in this country. We have some great people in this country. So, but we're going to follow the laws of this country. And, we have what people don't realize, we have very, very strong laws.
Oh, that was Donald Trump last night, opening the door, some think, to the possibility that there could be some wiggle room in his steadfast campaign promise to deport 11 million illegal aliens who are in our country. We will hear, or could we hear, more about a possible shift in the coming weeks. Senior national correspondent John Roberts is live in Tampa, where Mr. Trump is holding a rally later this afternoon. So, John, what's the latest from the campaign officially on any new immigration proposals?
Eric, good morning to you from a steamy Tampa where people are lining up outside the Fairgrounds Entertainment Hall where Donald Trump will be speaking this afternoon. Not likely that he will mention anything about his plans for immigration this afternoon. He did have something on the books loosely for tomorrow in Colorado that he canceled, but he's still giving hints about a possible softening or dialing back of his initial hardline stance on what to do about the millions upon millions of people who entered this country illegally. Months ago and up to a few weeks ago, Trump was saying deport them all, get them all out of the country. Now saying there are bad people in this country who need to go immediately, but maybe, just maybe, some of the others may be able to stay. Here's what he told Hannity last night in a town hall meeting.
We've got some great people in this country. They shouldn't be here. They're still great people, all right? But we've got some really, really bad gang members and some horrible people.
Start with them.
Those people are going out day one. They're going to be the first order I sign. They're going out day one. But you have really great people wanting and so proudly wanting to come into our country. And now what you'd be doing is you'd take people away from that line. And it's
is there any part of the law?
Now, shortly after Donald Trump said that in the Hannity town hall, he appeared on stage in Austin last night with some mothers of children who were killed, or at least the children were killed by illegal immigrants. So while he may be thinking about softening his stance on the people who are already here in this country illegally, if they are well-behaved folks who haven't committed any crimes, he certainly is not softening his stance, continuing his hardline stance on illegal immigration in general in this country. Eric?
Yeah, seeing him hug those mothers is pretty powerful when you have to consider what they've gone through. Meanwhile, Mr. Trump is continuing his outreach to minority voters.
Yes, and this is something that the Clinton campaign is increasingly becoming concerned about, because if you go to their website and look at what they're saying about it, they are hammering Donald Trump for reaching out to the African-American community, saying basically he has no business doing that. But Trump is undaunted by all of this. He's going to continue to do it, making the case that decades of Democratic administrations, both at the federal and the local levels, have failed to address the problems of the inner cities. This is what he said at his rally last night in Austin.
I say this to the African American community: give Donald Trump a chance. We will turn it around. We will make your streets safe, so when you walk down the street, you don't get shot, which is what's happening now. Success has to be created for everyone, and it has to be available to everyone.
Now, that is a point Donald Trump will continue to hammer home here in Tampa and again at a rally in Jackson, Mississippi tonight. He'll also go after Hillary Clinton for the Clinton Foundation ties to the State Department. Donald Trump saying it's difficult to know where the foundation ends and the State Department begins, basically reinforcing the notion of somebody was paying to play, according to Donald Trump, at least. John?
Yeah, all right, John, thanks so much. We'll have a lot more on this throughout the rest of the newscast. And those doors open, by the way, in about half an hour, and they really are lining up. Martha.
So we're working on this story out of Italy. More towns destroyed after a strong earthquake rocked central Italy. These are live pictures from the scene where they are digging out of the rubble. Search and rescue crews working to extricate people from the damage and from these crumbled houses. These are centuries-old buildings in this village that's in the central part of Italy, about 100 miles from Rome. And we will stay on top of that for you.
That is just so frightening and so heartbreaking. We'll have a live report, as Martha said. Well, as John Roberts just reported, Donald Trump not letting up. He's continuing to slam Mrs. Clinton and her foundation. Amid growing questions this morning about a possible pay-for-play scheme while she was Secretary of State. Was there one? And what could it mean for the ongoing campaign? We'll have a fair and balanced debate coming up.
America can never elect a candidate who, like Hillary Clinton, did government favors for those giving her family and her foundation massive amounts of cash.
It's disgusting. It shouldn't be allowed. What's going on with Hillary Clinton, there is no justice in this country. There is no justice in this country. Zero. And for her to have the privilege or the right to run for president with what she's done, with deleting 33,000 emails, and you can imagine what was on those emails. It is so sad, and the whole world is looking, and the whole world is laughing at the United States.
That was Donald Trump, of course, last night on the new revelations of a possible pay-for-play operation between the Clinton Foundation and Mrs. Clinton's State Department while she was Secretary of State. Mr. Trump doubling down on calls for a special prosecutor to investigate Mrs. Clinton after thousands of emails reveal that her aides gave special access to major foundation donors. And the fallout continues. Take a look at this front page of today's New York Post. It says, donation, state for sale. Was it? Alan Colmes is host of The Alan Colmes Show and a Fox News contributor. Brad Blakeman, former Deputy Assistant to President George W. Bush, both join us now. Brad, let me start with you. Robbie Mook, the Clinton campaign manager, this morning said that these charges, he called them outrageous, continues to say and insist that there was a wall of separation between state and the foundation, claiming there's no conflict that evolved. Brad, do you buy this defense?
It's baloney. Bill and Hillary Clinton are the Bonnie and Clyde of political corruption. They don't do it at the point of a gun. They do it by email. They do it with a wink and a nod. They do it with staff. And they do it by donation. And here's what happened, Eric. When she first became Secretary of State, the White House was concerned about a conflict of interest. So what do? They enter into an agreement. Hillary breaches that agreement. How? By setting up a private email server, by cross-pollinating key staff. They're on the State Department payroll while they're on the Clinton Foundation payroll. And by the way, the Clinton Foundation's key initiative is a global initiative. Who's head of foreign policy for our country? Hillary Clinton. $156 million was given by donors, the same donors who then gained access to the Secretary of State. This is all fact, probable cause to believe serious crimes were committed. And by the way, Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution states that a federal employee cannot take a gift from a foreign source entity or potentate, and that's exactly what they did. They breached not only the Constitution, but numerous laws, and I believe they should be indicted, both of them. And will it happen? No. She will be tried in the court of public opinion in November and not a court of law.
Alan, do you think that serious crimes were committed?
There's no evidence that any crimes were committed, no evidence of any pay for play.
Plenty of evidence.
The New York Post story is based on an AP investigation that said that 85 people out of 135 people that they looked into, or 165 people, had contact with Hillary Clinton. None of them were government employees. None of them were of foreign countries. There's no evidence of pay for play because people met, because there happened to be conversations, because some of them happened to be doing business with the government and also contributed to a foundation that actually did good works around the world. And by the way, one of the people who contributed to the Clinton Foundation happened to be Donald Trump. So this is all wishful thinking on the part of a detractor.
Yeah, and Donald Trump says he knows how to work a pay-for-play. He says they're absolute. This sounds like the Chicago alderman. You know, when the highway guy has the asphalt contract, comes in with an envelope of $100,000.
There's no evidence there was pay-for-play. What did Donald Trump ever get out of it?
Yes, there is evidence.
Well,
there's
no
circumstantial evidence.
No,
Alan,
that's not evidence.
Circumstantial evidence is the best evidence.
What's the evidence? You're just circumstantial evidence, not evidence.
You donated to the Clinton Foundation, and you got a meeting. And, by the way, in the Nigerian case, you got a land deal. There is plenty of evidence to believe that probable cause, that crimes have been committed. And let me tell you something. If you can indict a ham sandwich, the FBI would be at the all-you-can-eat buffet.
Well, the FBI is, that's a nice line, nice little quote there, but the FBI has already said there's nothing to indict as far as they know.
No, they wanted to look into this matter, and the Justice Department shot them down.
The FBI, and you know, Comey has said there's no wrongdoing that he could tell, that she did not lie to the FBI.
That's on the emails.
However, well, the emails were just mentioned, too, in the introduction of this segment. The fact of the matter is that you would love to prove pay for play. You'd love to say it's suggestive, but there's no evidence of that because you've got a candidate who's falling in the polls, who can't win, and this is the only chance Republicans have to try to win an election.
Well, Alan, let me give you some specifics. New York Times says the foundation was lobbied. The foundation lobbied the State Department to change an HIV program in Rwanda. We're told that there was absolutely supposed to be a total separation. Rajiv Fernando, he's a Chicago commodities broker. He gives $100,000, maybe $1 to $5 million to the campaign. He gets appointed to a state arms control and nuclear panel. The guy's a commodities trader. I'm not finished yet. Wall Street Journal today, a Ukrainian businessman donates $8 million while he's lobbying the State Department for Ukrainian democracy or so. Then you got that uranium deal. And the Canadian businessman, that was hidden, and suddenly the Russians end up with 20% of our uranium assets in Wyoming.
If I could respond, the State Department, the post-Clinton State Department has stated, this is all part of the story, by the way, that is the front page of the New York Post, that no decisions were made at the State Department to benefit the Clinton Foundation in any kind of pay-for-play situation. Did not happen, and that they honored whatever agreements were made between the Clintons and the government prior to the formation of the Clinton Foundation.
Brad, what about that list, and what about what Alan just said?
Look, it's a State Department investigating themselves. This is crazy. The point of the matter is, Eric, is that crimes have been committed. There's no doubt.
Prove one.
There's no doubt.
Show one.
I'll prove one. The Nigerian land deal. All of a sudden, millions of dollars get paid in, and the Nigerian who paid the donation to the Clinton Foundation gets a land deal.
No evidence to pay for play. I mean, you are jumping the gun here.
I don't believe in coincidences.
There's a difference between.
There's just too many coincidences. $150 million that's donated, and then all these people have access. Half the meetings she had were with donors to the foundation. By the way,
wait a minute.
Here's another way it worked, Alan. You pay Bill. Don't pay me because I can't take the money. Pay Bill or pay the foundation, and you get whatever you want.
You're ignoring what the foundation. You're ignoring what the foundation actually does. Number one, and when you say half the donors, again, you're ignoring that the AP story also says they did not include government employees, did not include foreign people, people of foreign governments. That was a very small list of donors in that mathematical equation you came up with, which does not represent everybody.
Look, any good they did is outweighed by the bad that they did.
That's your opinion.
That's going to be the last
Says
word.
Who?
That's the debate.
Says me.
There's no.
Says who?
There's no process. There's no prosecution yet. No prosecution yet. This is all up there. But the fact is that people who did give money to the foundation did have meetings with Mrs. Clinton while she was the Secretary of State, and at least had access by the aides. And
that they might have had anyway, because she was Secretary of State doing business in foreign
countries. The money
countries.
made it easier.
All right, we'll see how this all plays out. Alan and Brad, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Martha.
Back here at home, we are awaiting remarks this morning from Indiana Governor Mike Pence. Donald Trump's running mate is set to speak at a rally in the battleground state of North Carolina today. He will be in Charlotte. This is new details surfaced about their Democratic opponent, Hillary Clinton, showing possible State Department corruption under her watch. A new AP report finds more than half of her private meetings were with donors to the Clinton Foundation. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge is live in our D.C. bureau with an update on this. Good morning, Catherine.
Well, thank you, Martha. The Associated Press sued for Clinton's calendars and found that more than half of the people who met with or had scheduled phone calls with Secretary Clinton donated to her family charity or pledged money to its international programs. The 85 donors contributed $156 million, and 20 of those donors gave more than $1 million. Newly released emails from a separate lawsuit are now fleshing out the role of Dennis Chang, a key fixer who has worn many hats for Bill and Hillary Clinton. From fundraising at the Clinton Foundation, where according to published reports, Chang built a donor base of more than $250 million, to serving as Secretary Clinton's deputy chief of protocol at the State Department, where he greeted heads of state such as British Prime Minister Tony Blair, you see here, to now serving as national finance director for Clinton's presidential campaign. The new emails show how Chang worked directly with longtime Clinton aide and fixer Huma Abedin to seamlessly share information with Secretary Clinton about the foundation's fundraising events, objectives, and major donors. Fox News asked the Government Accountability Group, FACT, to review the emails and Dennis Chang's role.
He could be best described as the bag man. He's the one that raised the money and also kept the donors happy. And so you would expect, and I've always expected, that Mr. Chang would be right in the middle of some of these transactions that were going on between the Clinton Foundation and their donors and those that wanted access to the State Department and Secretary Clinton.
For context, the AP fought with the State Department over these calendars for 3 years, Martha.
So what was the response from Hillary Clinton's team on this, Catherine?
Well, this morning the campaign manager spoke to MSNBC, where he claimed the records are simply incomplete.
Is pretty outrageous.
State Department spokesman Mark Toner told reporters earlier this week, now this is before the Associated Press analysis, that the overlap between the State Department and the foundation was not inappropriate and did not break any ethics rules, Martha.
Okay. Thank you very much, Catherine.
You're welcome.
So Donald Trump seized on this new report, saying that the State Department, he believes, was for sale.
It is impossible to figure out where the Clinton Foundation ends and the State Department begins. It is now abundantly clear that the Clintons set up a business to profit from public office.
Wall Street Journal columnist Bill McGurn says that this is nothing new, just part of what he calls Clinton's business model. He writes, it beggars belief to think that all these dollars were being given without an expectation of something in return. Bill McGurn joins us now. Bill, always good to have you with us. Welcome back to the program. I think a lot of people listen to this. They see what's unearthed and they say, yeah, but it's been investigated. There doesn't appear to be that smoking gun issue that shows that somebody paid them money and they got what they wanted from the State Department. What do you think?
Quid pro quos are very hard to prove in political cases. But there are a lot of quids lying about and there are a lot of quos lying about. It's very hard to find the pro part, the cause and effect. But what we already know is that Doug Band was soliciting favors. Sometimes his emails labeled them a favor on behalf of wealthy clients. Look, the Clinton Foundation, or Mrs. Clinton, did not have conflicts of interest. The whole thing was she is a conflict of interest that created a foundation around it and had her State Department. And the reason that the Clintons are able to do this, unlike other presidents, is because they not only have an ex-president out there, but they have someone else still in play. Mrs. Clinton, first as Secretary of State, and now as a potential president.
I mean, when you look at it, when you leave the White House, you have to figure out what to do with your life, right? And Bill Clinton started this foundation. I mean, he could have, I imagine, started a business or done something else. then she has the server set up when she becomes the State Department chief, and she wants it at her house. We still don't know why. We
do know why.
Well, I know, but I mean, they never explain why.
We do know why. We know that she wanted to avoid people looking into things like this. Look, the answers that they're given last week when the other batch of emails came out showing the Nigerian Lebanese businessman and so forth, the answer from the State Department was this doesn't affect Mrs. Clinton because Doug Band, the man requesting the favors, was a Bill Clinton associate, and that he was requesting them from staffers. It's just, so we used to parse what is the meaning of the word is. Now we're parsing the meaning of the word Clinton. State Department said the same thing the other day, that the emails were not inappropriate because they went to Clinton staffers and not Mrs. Clinton in many cases.
I mean, what's abundantly clear is that they started their own organization. Right. It's like a fiefdom outside of Washington that has made them enormously wealthy.
And
I mean,
they put people.
Correct?
I mean, it's just as I say. It's not an organization that has conflicts of interest. It's rooted in a conflict of interest. You know, people say, gee, a lot of these people that were paying Bill Clinton hefty fees for his speeches had business before the state. That's not a coincidence. That was inevitable under their model. And then they allowed special employee status for Cheryl Mills and so forth, who I believe at one point was working for State, the foundation, and Teneo, which is Doug Band's consulting company. That's the point. It is a conflict of interest around which was built a structure for funneling money.
So Donald Trump is now tapping into this. A lot of people who support Donald Trump or who watch politics closely say, well, at least he's focusing now on the things that he needs to be focusing on. However, the FBI basically dropped any investigation into the Clinton Foundation. Why?
It's the Clinton Foundation. I don't know why the FBI dropped it. I mean, I think the FBI lost a lot of credibility, especially as we see these things coming out. But this is just a pattern, and it started with cattle futures. You have headlines, they come up with the cover story. Months later, you find out that they were lying, you know, whether it was Jennifer Flowers or something else. And by the time you find that out, as now, it's sort of a little too late. I mean, now they're saying they won't take foreign donations. If it's a problem, they shouldn't have been taking it in the first place. They had an agreement with the White House that they've already violated. Just the agreement was that we're going to keep this very, very separate. There's going to be a bright line. The Clintons never keep anything separate. Everything is sort of thrown into one pot, and it makes it very difficult to sort out.
Right. And as you point out, the Obama administration was concerned about the foundation. And they said, we'll make you Secretary of State, but we're concerned about the foundation.
Right. And we want you to keep it separate. And we know now it was not separate.
Well, the American people have a choice now, whether or not they want to continue with this over the next 4 years. Yes, it's all out there, so that's the decision that the people will make over the course of the next few months in this fall. Bill, thank you very much. Great piece, as always, in the Wall Street Journal yesterday. Check it out. Good to see you, Bill.
Thanks, Martha.
All right, thanks, Martha and Bill. Well, it's not just the Clinton Foundation, but Donald Trump also not letting up on Mrs. Clinton's email controversy.
The new revelations about Hillary Clinton's email scandal make clear we have only seen the tip of the iceberg.
He is calling for a special prosecutor, claiming the State Department under Mrs. Clinton was riddled with corruption. Is this a winning strategy for his campaign? Our political panel on that next.
Can you imagine what she had on the 33,000 deleted emails? Can you imagine? She said she sent nothing more classified, a total lie, unmasked to the entire world, and more to come.
Oh, that's Donald Trump last night criticizing Hillary Clinton on what he brands her illegal pay-for-play scheme at the State Department. Well, the Clinton campaign saying there was nothing of the sort. But you know, this growing controversy has now become a pointed campaign theme for Mr. Trump. And the release of those nearly 15,000 State Department emails fueling more allegations. They show major donors were given access to Mrs. Clinton, some who had interest before the State Department, who also gave big bucks to the foundation as well. Will this issue resonate with the voters, and are the Clinton campaign's denials of wrongdoing enough to put all this to rest? Ed Rollins is a former campaign manager for the Reagan-Bush 1984 campaign and chief strategist for Great America PAC, a Donald Trump super PAC. Joe Trippi, former Howard Dean campaign manager and a Fox News contributor. Welcome to you both. Ed, let me start with you.
Thank you.
Is this getting more traction? Every single day, Donald Trump is hammering away, hammering away, hammering away. And the Clinton folks say, nothing to see here, no conflict of interest, nothing was done that was illegal.
Well, more and more things are being disclosed every day, and the judgment on whether they're illegal or illegal will be made by the American public. They certainly don't look good, and they certainly don't smell good. When you basically have all of your major donors, half the major people you see have given substantial money to the Clinton Foundation, and the way they get in is not by calling her secretary and saying, please, can I see him in town? I want to see the secretary. You have Doug Bann, who's the personal aide to the president and the head of the Clinton Foundation, who raised that money, calling Huma and saying, basically, get this person in, he's really important, or she's really important. I mean, that all smells. And when she became Secretary of State, they signed an agreement with the president of the White House that they wouldn't do this kind of stuff, and they have violated it and violated it repeatedly.
Well, you know, Joe, they did say they wouldn't do this type of stuff, and look what's coming out.
No, look, this is going to be and has been a continuing problem, going to be a problem all the way through November for them, obviously. And you asked, like, you know, does it have consequences? Of course, it's already had consequences. Look at her honesty and trustworthy numbers are a mess, as are, by the way, Donald Trump's. And that's the problem with this attack, I think, is that I think most people have made a judgment about Hillary Clinton, whether they trust her or not. Most the numbers are bad. They're bad for Trump. The problem Trump has, I think, is that the same kind of, even bigger numbers have decided he's unfit or it doesn't have the temperament to be president. And that's where he's got to change. If he doesn't change that, then they're going to look at these two candidates, both of whom they have concerns about their honesty and trustworthiness, and decide, well, I'll go with, I'm not going to go with the unfit, the guy who doesn't have the right temperament to be president. That's why Hillary Clinton still has a significant lead in most of the polls. And that's what I think he has to focus on. I think that may be why he's trying to soften his position on immigration. He's trying to become sort of less the bombastic guy. I'm not sure this email, going after her relentlessly on this is going to change a whole lot. People have made a judgment about it.
Finally, Ed, how about that softening? I mean, he was going to have that immigration announcement and speech tomorrow. That's been delayed. Will that help Trump? Do you see something there?
I think Joe is exactly right. Trump has to make this about her. So far, what she's done is they've just sat back, raised money, raised substantial money, run pretty good commercials, and just put the spotlight on Trump and let him perform. And he's had some good speeches, and then he doesn't stick with them. He gets inconsistent. In this particular case, in the remaining time that's left, he has to make this his biggest issue. He has to articulate that he's a leader that can do tough things. She's not, and lay it out very clearly. The reality here is that a campaign is a very sustained period of time. You can't talk about 30 different things. You talk about 3 or 4 things.
Right. Well, it seems that we got to go out of time. Seems like Kellyanne Conway, though, she's got the lasso.
She's first rate.
Exactly.
She's going to do a great job.
All right, Ed and Joe, thank you.
Thank you.
Donald Trump's rise in the political arena, propelling the term alt-right into the national spotlight. The alt-right movement, a small offshoot of the GOP, known for its rejection of multiculturalism and distrust of immigration and immigrants. While most Republican leaders have distanced themselves, some of Trump's actions have empowered members of the movement. While Hillary Clinton expected to attack Trump in a speech over his, quote, disturbing alt-right political philosophy. Doug McElway unravels all of this for us in Washington. So what exactly is the alt-right? Is it described accurately there or not?
Well, you know, it depends on who you ask, Martha. The mainstream media is fond of portraying the alt-right as a mob of unruly, racist, bigoted, sexist, uneducated white males who've been unleashed and who feel empowered by Donald Trump's rejection of political correctness. This is the behavior you often see portrayed in videos published by mainstream media showing violence and bigoted behavior outside of Trump rallies perpetrated by Trump supporters. Mainstream media outlets are much less inclined to feature videos that portray violence directed at Trump supporters. But even many conservatives reject the alt-right, such as former Breitbart editor-at-large Ben Shapiro, who resigned from that publication in part because of his former employer's alliance with the alt-right.
The alt-right is sort of a nationalist populist movement that shot through with white supremacism and anti-Semitism, and you can see it in the Breitbart comment sections.
But the alt-right is much more than that. Another branch of it reflected in the activism of people like Milo Yiannopoulos, a flamboyant, openly gay conservative activist who writes for Breitbart and who goes about college speaking tours ruthlessly savaging the left's obsession with, microaggressions and safe spaces, things of that sort. He gets under their skin, Martha.
He sure does. So, how did they come up with these tactics? What's the background here, Doug?
Well, the alt-right is using the same tactics that the left has used for generations now, basically fighting fire with fire. That's a big part of it. It's demonstrated in something that Mike Rowe, you might know him, the popular host of the Dirty Jobs show, something that he posted on Facebook recently. It's okay to poke fun at Trump supporters as uneducated white men, he says, but Rowe asks rhetorically, and I'm quoting here, if the media didn't care about the lack of college among black men supporting Obama, why do they care so much about the lack of college among white men supporting Trump? Moreover, when exactly did a lack of college education become synonymous with a lack of education? Rose notes that tradesmen, mechanics, welders, carpenters make up a part of the Trump base, and they are hardly without education. Indeed, they are highly skilled. On that note, Martha, do you know what a double overhead camshaft is?
No.
How about a bias tire versus a radial tire?
Don't do this to me. Don't do this to me.
I'm sorry. I don't know it either. I'm an English major. I know nothing.
I'm political science, so we'll have to go back to the depth. I'm sure somebody's going to write to me right now and tell me. Doug, it's very interesting. We're seeing a lot of dynamics that are sort of shifting the parties across the board, and it's quite fascinating. Thank you very much for that. Good to see you, Doug.
Yeah, you too.
Iconic Empire State Building. Well, the road to the White House seems to be getting a bit more difficult for Donald Trump, at least according to the latest polls. Analysts say he needs to sweep 4 key battleground states to win. And right now, he's trailing in all of them. According to the average of polls at Real Clear Politics, Mrs. Clinton is leading in those key states. As you can see, they are Ohio, Florida, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina. Dr. Larry Sabato, director of the Center for Politics at the University of Virginia, always brings his crystal ball. He can't see it. It's on his lap, but he knows what it says. Larry, good to see you. Why
Thank you, Eric.
does it seem to you that this race will come down to those 4 states, and why?
Well, there's no question that that was the path for Donald Trump, the best path available to get to 270. And my crystal ball, the Crystal Ball website, outlined that in March, that particular pathway, carrying all of Romney's states, including North Carolina, and flipping 3 Obama states, Florida, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. I don't think that's changed in the sense that if Trump is going to pull an upset, and it will be an upset if he wins, he's going to have to flip those states.
Can he cobble together some other scenario?
Well, you can imagine a Rust Belt scenario. You could imagine, again, carrying Pennsylvania and Ohio, but adding Michigan and Wisconsin. You put that together with the Romney states, and you've got exactly 270 electoral votes. So, yes, there are other pathways that you can reasonably draw on the map. But until Donald Trump can get the momentum that he needs on the campaign trail, maybe from the debates, all of this is theoretical.
We just showed Florida, for example, and that was blue. There's about a 5-point difference between the two. Can he, drop Pennsylvania maybe, or drop Ohio and then add Florida? Will that make the math?
No, he needs all of them. Look, the advantage Hillary Clinton has is the advantage any Democratic nominee in 2016 would have had. We've developed a blue wall since 1992. And many of these states have started voting Democratic that once were reliably Republican, like Colorado, like Virginia. And frankly, those 2 are off the map. I don't care what anybody else tells you. They're not competitive this year. So they're part of the blue wall. When you start subtracting states like that, you're really left with a big play that Trump has to execute in order to win. And that big play is big states, Florida, Ohio, Pennsylvania.
Well, could he throw the, the big quarterback, final bomb? The Hail Mary. Emails, foundation, alleged conflict of interest, alleged illegalities. Do you think the charges that he's been hammered on the past few days will actually resonate? And could that switch and flip some of these states?
it certainly resonates with his base. It gets them even more excited, if it is possible for the Trump base to get more excited. At least the ones that I know and come in contact with, they're ready to go. They wish the election were tomorrow. Does this affect Hillary Clinton's support? No. Here is what is fascinating about this election. It's an open race for president. And normally with an open race, you have candidates that still aren't that well known and can manipulate their images and the image of their opponent. Eric, not this year. These two candidates are so well known and their images are almost set in stone that the concrete has started to harden earlier than it usually does. It's going to be tough to change people's minds once they've made them up.
And finally, could the debate change some people's minds, or do you think that'll just solidify the basis?
Today, in our polarized system, generally people turn into the debates to root for their side. They don't turn in to change their political coloration. And if they do, if they say, well, you know, so-and-so beat the other candidate, I'm really surprised that so-and-so won that debate. I'm going to give so-and-so another look. The research in that area shows that in the vast majority of cases, people return to their original choice within a week or 10 days. And the debates end October 19th. The election isn't until November 8th. So I'm open to the possibility that the debates will, as they say, change everything. But realistically, I'll be surprised if that happens.
Yeah, I go down to National Stadium and the Nats are playing. I'm still rooting for the Mets. So Larry Sabato.
There you go.
That's it.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. Martha?
Thanks, Eric.